I did everything right and they indicted me.
And I don't know what the I'm doing. Antifa!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Katie Halper Show. We are so excited to be doing one of our very important daytime streams where we get to talk to people who live in other parts of the world for whom 7 p.m. EST is not convenient. And that is, of course, the other time that we stream. So if you're just tuning in for one of our amazing guests and you don't already watch this show regularly, I'll remind people or tell people that we stream twice a week now. We stream Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we stream Tuesday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we have an amazing show for you today. We have the inimitable, hardest working man in Iranian media and political analysis, Mohammad Marandi. We also have joining us afterwards the great Nerdeen Kiswani. And then after that, we just added her, Moe Tkacik, who has some great reporting in the American Prospect about Kahane, the Israel Day Parade, the Jewish Defense League, and also the killing of Charlie Kirk. So if you haven't already done so, please do give this a thumbs up. Also, please do subscribe. That way you won't miss any of these streams that we do. Very important to do that. Liking the stream is very, very, very helpful. That helps get more eyeballs here. We definitely want to make sure that people hear and see these important voices. And if you can become Patreon supporters, please do so at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. You will be able to, for the $5 a month level, get access to bonus interviews, extended interviews, early access, behind the scenes stuff. So it's definitely worth it. Now, if you can't do that, and that is only, I think, 25 cents a day, Monday through Friday. But if you cannot do that and you still want to support the show, you can do that by becoming members at the $1 a month level. So that's literally $12 a year to support this show. Independent media, where you hear great voices like those of Dr. Marandi, Nerdeen Kiswani, and Moe Tkacik. So without any further ado, going to bring onto the show the aforementioned Dr. Marandi. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Marandi.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Of course. You are in Tehran. Tell us, please, about the latest. What is happening with these negotiations? What are people on the ground feeling?
There's nothing really new happening on the ground. The economy is not easy, obviously, because of the war and because of the siege. People continue to go out on the streets at nights to rally in support of the armed forces and the resistance. The Iranian government has said, and the Iranian armed forces have also said, that they will not accept any agreement with the United States until the Israeli regime ends the war in Lebanon and retreats to where it was before the war, and that the killing in Gaza must also come to an end. So this is a red line for Iran that the United States has tried to resist as being a part of any potential agreement, but the Iranians have said it's out of the question. So the key issues for Iran is Lebanon and Gaza, Lebanon and Gaza, the breaking of the siege, the return of roughly half of Iran's assets that were stolen by the U.S. government, roughly $12 billion, and a waiver of the sanctions linked to Iran's oil and gas exports for as long as the agreement lasts.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically where we are now.
Okay. Let's talk about this, the Lebanese front, because that, of course, is, as you just mentioned, this is part of Iran's commitment to stopping bloodshed and genocide in Gaza and massacres in Lebanon. So on the Lebanese front, according to Israeli media, Netanyahu has refused to bring forward a vote to the cabinet on the supposed ceasefire brokered between the U.S. and Lebanon until Hezbollah agrees. And this comes after multiple rejections of the deal by those on the Israeli right, such as Ben Gvir, who lamented, the prime minister should have told Trump, we appreciate you, but Israel is a sovereign and independent state that cannot accept the existence of a terrorist organization on its border. So as Ben Gvir suggested, it also comes after that supposedly angry phone call from Trump to Netanyahu that was reported on by Barak Ravid. The authenticity of that is obviously questionable. So what are your thoughts on this potential ceasefire in Lebanon and the response from Israel?
Well, first and foremost, I think it's important for people to know that the president of Lebanon and the prime minister of Lebanon were installed by the Americans. And the Saudis and US proxies, they collaborated to put them there. And they have no problem with the Israeli regime dominating South Lebanon. They know that if there is a ceasefire, the ceasefire that they've tried to negotiate, which is against the Constitution, they are not legally allowed to negotiate with the Israeli regime, but they've done so. And their ceasefire basically would allow Israeli regime domination over the South, which they really don't have a problem with. They dislike the people of the South. They despise them. In fact, the refugees from the South are being prevented from going to different parts of Lebanon as refugees by the president and the prime minister. And they also are blocking any aid from getting to them from Iran and Iraq. So the Iranians have been trying to get aid to Lebanon. They're blocking it. They won't let them because what they're trying to do is that they're trying to crush the community that supports the resistance, that segment of Lebanese society, which is predominantly Shia, but it includes Sunnis, it includes Christians, it includes Druze, but they want to crush them. So from the south, you have the Israeli regime. To the east, you have Al-Qaeda and ISIS, US proxies. And then you have the government in Lebanon, which is preventing the refugees from leaving the south and cornering them, and then preventing any aid, even food or tents or anything from coming from Iran or Iraq. So the government is not really, I mean, the Iranian government won't say this, and the resistance bloc in Lebanon won't say this, but the government is really working with the Israelis and the Americans and Al-Qaeda and ISIS to crush the resistance. This is the final objective. But the resistance continues, and they have been very successful on the battlefield. It is quite amazing what they've done. I mean, they're surrounded in their own country. And to the east, you have ISIS and Al-Qaeda. And then to the south, you have the Israeli regime. Then you have the Mediterranean, which is controlled by NATO and its proxies. And despite that, this community of people, which is comprised of, as I said, people from all walks of life and all religious groups in Lebanon, you have these people who remain steadfast and continue to strike at the Israeli regime. Now, what the Iranians have done to ease this or to bring an end to this is three things. One is that Iran, as I said, has said that we will have no ceasefire agreement with the Americans unless there is a ceasefire and an end to the conflict and a retreat by the Israeli regime. Of course, there's also Gaza, but for the focus here is Lebanon. So that is A. B, the Iranians have warned the Israelis that if they try to flatten Beirut, because that's what the Israeli regime has said they want to do. They want to bomb southern Beirut in particular and flatten the city. I mean, very openly. And the West has no problem with this. To create another Gaza, they're already doing it in the smaller cities and towns in the south, but they want to do it to Beirut too. Why do they want to do it to Beirut? Because they want to leave all of the supporters of the resistance in Lebanon without homes, and then without any place of refuge. And as I said, the president and the prime minister, who are U.S. proxies, they contribute to preventing these people from having any place of refuge, and that's how you get them to submit. They want to humiliate them, to bring the people to their knees collectively. Right. And so the Iranians have said, if you move to destroy Dahiya or southern Beirut, we will start firing missiles at northern Israel. And the leader's military advisor went on television and said it will be much worse than during the war. Iran will hit much harder than they did during the 39 days of warfare. For now, that has deterred the regime. Now, the quote by Trump, whether it is true or not, I think is significant, even though many would say that U.S. policy continues to be the same as before, and that is absolutely true. But I do think there is something in this quote, and that is, in my personal opinion, it is, I think, to weaken Netanyahu, not to weaken the Israeli regime. But I have a feeling that, because in the past we've seen these fake quotes coming from Axios. They have a history of dishonest reporting. And roughly a year ago, we're approaching the anniversary of the first war, the 12-day war, where they carried out a blitzkrieg attack on Iran, the Israeli regime in the US. And back then, Axios was saying that Trump and Netanyahu have deep differences. Trump wants to give negotiations a chance, and it was fake. And immediately afterwards, we had an assault. So I don't think that this Axios report is anything but deception at one level, but also I think it is perhaps an attempt to weaken Netanyahu before the elections. I think that maybe even American firsters in the White House and Zionists in the United States, some of them are thinking that the price is too high, and that the American people are turning against Zionism. The American Christians, American Jews, young Christians especially, are turning against Zionism, and this is dangerous. So I'm thinking that perhaps they would like to see Netanyahu lose the election, and then someone else would replace him, someone just as genocidal, but they will present him as different, and all the crimes of the past they'll attribute to Netanyahu, even though the opposition, their leaders have expressed genocidal intent just as much as Netanyahu, and they also speak about flattening Beirut. I think that may be a possibility. I'm not saying that this analysis is true. It's just personal. I think this may be correct, but it doesn't change the way in which the Trump supports the Israeli regime. But I think the United States right now does not want to have renewed conflict with Iran, a hot conflict, a military conflict. And we also see that in the Persian Gulf, in the Strait of Hormuz, because the last time the United States struck an Iranian tanker for no reason, the Iranians hit back very hard in Kuwait and Bahrain, where the United States is very active there against Iran, but the Americans didn't strike back. So if you put these two together, I think maybe one could say that the United States at this stage does not want an armed war, another war, military war with Iran.
Right. Yeah.
So
No, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so we are where we are, and the Iranians are putting pressure both through the threat of missile strikes, refraining from negotiating because of Lebanon, and also not accepting any final deal until the issue in Lebanon and Gaza is resolved.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because a couple things. One is, of course, as you point out, this has not translated into an end to Israel's aggressions, and we know from not exactly a peacenik, but Ronald Reagan in 1982, when Israel was bombing Lebanon, he called the prime minister and said that this was a Holocaust, according to Reagan's own diaries, and he said he used that word, and it stopped, which is an example of how the United States, with the phone call, could stop this. And something else is interesting and noteworthy is that you mentioned Dahiya, the neighborhood in Beirut, and that, of course, is the origin of the Dahiya Doctrine, which is something that Israel implements, which is basically that you respond. I mean, whatever. It's always Israel starting it, but then let's say they do something, you act with disproportionate force. So it's basically a doctrine based on war crimes, right? It's a doctrine built around a war crime.
Yes, you flatten people's apartment blocks, you crush people in apartment blocks in retaliation to any resistance operation carried out against the Israeli military. And that's what's happening now. What they want, because the Hezbollah is striking their tanks and their soldiers, the Israelis, in their rage, they bomb towns and villages and slaughter families. And of course, Western media, and including their reporters in Beirut, are trying to deflect and say these are Hezbollah strongholds. But all we see online are images of families crushed under rubble, the bodies of women and children being retrieved. But they don't want the world to see it that way. In other words, what they're doing to Lebanon is the same as what they did to Gaza. In Gaza, there were no Western journalists. They carried it out. The West looked away. In Lebanon, there are Western journalists, and I'm talking about corporate media journalists and state journalists who all look away as well.
Right. Yeah. And also, we should just mention, and you tweeted about this. I'm not going to show it because it's just too painful and disturbing. But you tweeted about this, and this should be headline news, but because of the corporate media's agenda, it's not. But we have a Israel burning an entire family in Gaza, burning them.
Yes, I tweeted that today. Of course, it was I retweeted someone else's tweet, and I also commented on the tweet. Yeah, the people, you can see someone moving a body piece.
Absolutely.
Yeah, a leg, I think. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah. And you tweeted that. You said, less than a week after Israel burned several preteen children to death in their tents, 4 more residential apartments were set ablaze overnight, with Israel's military burning entire families to death as they slept. And you quote tweeted that drop site. That was a drop site tweet. You quote tweeted it and you said the satanic Zionist regime must be dismantled. So what does that mean? What would that look like? Not that I'm asking you to kind of like have a diplomatic plan, but what does it mean when you say that?
Well, I haven't seen this poll, but I think I heard it from Max Blumenthal, where I don't know on what show I saw him say this, but in the United States, roughly half of the Jewish population under the age of 35 believe that Palestinians and Jews should live side by side equally in Palestine, or what's called Israel. And that is basically, that would mean dismantling the Zionist entity. That would mean dismantling the Israeli regime, because that is the problem. If you had if with what half the Jews of the United States who are under the age of 35, if they got their way, that would be exactly what the Iranians are saying. That would be exactly what I'm saying in this tweet as well. But that's where we aren't there.
Yeah, and again, people will get so offended by calls for that. And what they're doing is they're offended by the calls for equal rights, the calls to dismantle an apartheid system that is genocidal, and engaging in genocide. They're offended by that, but they're not offended by the genocide, by the apartheid.
Absolutely. And by the way, just to clarify, that doesn't mean the other half, they say, no, we should have the Israeli regime do what it's doing. The other, let's say,
Right.
50 or so percent, from what I recall, they speak of different things. Like a segment say that the regime should go back to its previous borders
Right.
and have a
Two-state
two-state
solution, right.
solution. That's what. So it's not as if you have it's the under 35 half say let's support Netanyahu, and the other half are saying no, we should have equal
Right.
rights. And it's obviously the Jews under the age of 35. They are overwhelmingly opposed to this genocidal behavior of the regime.
Right. Yeah, I should clarify. I'm just referring to the people who I'm not suggesting that that's the other half of the people polled. I'm saying more generally that it's so rich to see people up in arms over calls to dismantle a genocidal entity, and they're more disturbed by that than they are by the genocide. And again, I think it's not that hard to understand. It also doesn't mean killing every Jew who lives there right now. It is what happened in South Africa, right? Like that was not a genocide of white South Africans. Some people would like us to believe it was, but that's obviously a ridiculous claim. But
Trump says it's a genocide now.
Right, exactly.
Except for Trump, no one else says it.
Yeah. Well, speaking of what Trump says, I thought it'd be trigger warning because this is in. I mean, if only we could laugh at this. I keep forgetting who did it, but someone tweeted out like it's so unfortunate that the funniest person in the world is also the most evil person in the world, and referring to Trump. He's up there. I don't know if he's the most, but he's definitely up there. Let's take a listen to what he had to say about the words ceasefire, what it means in certain parts of the world. Let's take a listen.
Ceasefire. How do you define ceasefire?
How do you define ceasefire?
Pretty much the way it is. It's a different part of the world. I'd say in that part of the world, ceasefire is when you're shooting in a more moderate manner.
Hilarious. Yeah, very, very funny.
Yeah, it's actually quite, I think, racist. But the fact is that the ceasefires in this part of the world are violated by him and the Israeli regime. And for example, first of all, he launched 2 wars against Iran, unprovoked, illegal, brutal, barbaric. And then after the ceasefire, on numerous occasions, as you've seen, he initiated a military conflict with Iran, the last being 2-3 nights ago. So on no occasion did Iran begin anything, or did Iran first fire at the Americans or anyone else for that matter, including the Israeli regime. And of course, the Israelis, their ceasefires, when he speaks of that part of the world, all we have to do is look at Gaza. Since the so-called Gaza ceasefire, the Israeli regime has killed almost 1,000 Palestinians. They've shot little girls in their tents, in their school tents, or tents where they're at school, and just shot and killed them. They've bombed kids. They've burned families alive. The images, as I just tweeted one today, which they burned them alive, hours ago. There is no ceasefire, but sadly, Gaza is complicated now for Iran because what happened was that countries in the region, Abdullah in Jordan, Sisi, Erdogan, Aliyev in Azerbaijan, these regimes in the Persian Gulf, and other leaders from other countries, they went to Egypt, you recall, and gave a thumbs up to Trump's fake ceasefire. And they whitewashed his genocide. And instead of putting pressure on Trump or the Israeli regime, they went and celebrated Trump. And ever since, Netanyahu has been slaughtering Palestinians, and these countries do nothing. And they helped destroy the momentum that existed at that time, because you recall all the huge protests across Europe and across much of the world, as far away as Australia. Usually in these countries, in these countries, you don't see such huge numbers for anything. But Trump and these leaders, Erdogan and Abdullah and Sisi, they all, and Aliyev and the others, they all helped destroy that momentum.
Right.
And so there is a ceasefire in Gaza, and Iran wants to include Gaza in the negotiations, but it's complicated because there's already this imposed ceasefire, which is terribly unjust. But Gaza is a part of the negotiation process between Iran and the United States. If we ever get an agreement, that's not at all clear. It's not a given.
Right. And you mentioned the racism in his comments, in Trump's comments, and one actually before going there, I think it's Francesca Albanese, the special rapporteur on the occupied territories, who says ceasefire means that Israel fires and Palestinians cease.
That's right.
Yeah, which is pretty apt.
Exactly. And that's what happened in Lebanon after the ceasefire. The Israelis, every day, they were assassinating people, literally every day. And again, not only is it the United States that violates ceasefires in our region, but it's the Europeans, because all of the leaders of Israel, they're from Europe. They're all European. Right. Netanyahu himself, he's Polish. The president, yeah. None of them are indigenous. Right. To Palestine. None of them are Semites. They've changed their names to make it sound like they're from this region, but right. They're all European.
Yeah. By the way, I'm sorry to interrupt this with something so petty, but we have, let me just check how many, we got almost 1,000 people watching, which is great. We're going to need those likes. I know that you guys like this. I know you guys love listening to Dr. Marandi. So we're going to need to get those likes up. The ratio, what's interesting is that, let's see how the ratio is, because I think less people are watching on the mobile, the vertical than the horizontal, but they actually have, I think, a better ratio. So we're going to need to get both of those numbers up. All right. Sorry to waste your time with that, Dr. Marandi, but this is so that we can bring people to
you should bring in more popular guests for the beginning of your program.
No, you are very, very, very popular. I think people get so transfixed and engaged that they forget to like. That's the problem. But everyone in the comments is very happy that you joined. But you mentioned how racist this is, right? This ceasefire means shooting more moderately, and it does remind me a bit of the CBS senior foreign correspondent Charlie D'Agata, who said after the outbreak of the Ukraine war, he said that this, meaning Ukraine, isn't a place, with all due respect, like Iraq or Afghanistan that has seen conflict raging for decades. This is a relatively civilized, relatively European city where you wouldn't expect that or hope that it's going to happen. And then you also have David Sakvaradze, the former deputy prosecutor general of Ukraine, who said of the attacks by Russia that, quote, European people with blue eyes and blonde hair being killed, children being killed every day. So do you have, what are your thoughts on this kind of like ragingly rank hypocrisy, double standard?
Yeah, you reminded me. I forgot all about that. That was a
memory.
Yeah. Well, it's the same thing. I mean, Trump sees South Africa as a genocide for obvious reasons. The white South Africans are far better off financially than ordinary people. And a few people die every year in South Africa because of they're murdered by thieves and others, but also, the Black Africans in South Africa and others are murdered in much larger numbers. So when Trump calls it a genocide, it's obvious why he's saying so. He's saying this, and he doesn't call what the Israeli regime does as genocide. In fact, he in his recent interview, he praised Netanyahu. So he's praising the forces of genocide. But it's not the difference between Trump and previous presidents is that he says the quiet part out loud.
Exactly. Right.
And even Obama, the policies that he pursued are very Eurocentric. He used, for example, I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, the maximum pressure sanctions against Iran were initiated by Obama,
right?
Not by Trump. After the nuclear deal with Iran, and he called them crippling sanctions. So he wanted to cripple Iranians, ordinary Iranians, because the sanctions were directed at ordinary people. They were not directed at Iran's military. They were directed at the entire population. The objective was to create so much misery that ordinary people, many would die and many would become desperate, and they would rise up out of desperation, just like anywhere else where they use maximum pressure sanctions. So they target ordinary, they try to make people suffer as much as possible so that they will force them to do what they want them to do. That's basically it. He started this policy, and I could never imagine that he would do something like this to a European country, or so there's no real difference between these people. But I think Trump reflects a condition in the United States which is unprecedented, and that is a rapid decline, and he's reflective of that decline. And I actually think in this sense that so there's no longer any political correctness and the sort of language of human rights and human equality and the rule of law. That's all gone. That was for like the unipolar moment where they would use those tools and those slogans and as in order to put pressure on countries that they didn't like, whether it was Venezuela or Cuba or Nicaragua or Syria or Iran or Libya or whoever. But that's all gone now. And so they're sort of gone back to the ruthlessness of the 19th century, the early 20th century, the 18th century empire, where it's just, we have to take over these countries and civilize them and basically plunder them.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's just revolting. And that's why I joke sometimes that, you can play a game called Who Said It, Trump or Chomsky, because they will say the same thing about what the United States is doing. But Chomsky says it in a way that condemns it, and Trump says it in a way that celebrates it. He just says the quiet part out loud. Like, we won't be sanctioning Saudi Arabia over killing Khashoggi because they just bought a bunch of weapons from us. And you can imagine Chomsky saying that. Of course, the United States won't be sanctioning, Saudi Arabia because they just bought a bunch of weapons. But of course, while these word salads play out, the ethnic cleansing and destruction of Lebanon continues. You've repeatedly called it a genocidal war in Lebanon as well. And so which is something that we've heard a lot of people say about Gaza, but not as much about Lebanon. So why do you think that's an appropriate term for it?
Well, because within this short period of time, roughly 3,500 people have been killed, and they've wiped out families. The Israelis are warning Christians not to, for example, in the city of, not to allow the refugees into their homes. In other words, they're searching for Muslims to make sure there are no, Shia Muslims in those neighborhoods. It's like the Nazis searching for Jews. And these people are, of course, and many people, including the president and the prime minister, are collaborating. So with the president and the prime minister, when they speak about caring for Lebanon, they don't care for Lebanon. They are, they've been installed by the empire, and they obviously despise the people of southern Lebanon. That's why they're preventing aid from getting in, and they're preventing them from moving around in their own country. So, this is, they're being ethnically cleansed, wiped out, and it's the same as Gaza. You see the similar images, the same ruthlessness, and it's a small country with a small population. I mean, 3,500 people in Lebanon. Let's say the whole population of Lebanon, if you say if you multiply it by, let's say 100, and you get the let's say something like the US population, right? Let's say there are 3.5 million Lebanese, because not all Lebanese are with the resistance. Let's say it's less than 3.5 million. It's the majority who are with the resistance, but let's say it's 3.5 million. that would be like times 100. If you multiply 3,500, that's 350,000 people who've been slaughtered in, let's say, the United States in this period of time. I don't know, over the last 2-3 months. That's a lot. That's a huge number. I mean, so for such a small community to lose so many people, and they've lost, I think, 9,000 people over the last 2.5 years. These are huge numbers for this community. Every family has lost people. I have friends in Lebanon, and they've lost relatives. So it's not a huge population, and and the Israelis want their land. It's clear. We know that we all know what the Israeli regime wants. They want a greater Israel. That's what the flag shows. That's what the U.S. ambassador to Israel has said. He said if they take the entire region, that's fine.
Right.
That's the objective. That's the
all.
ultimate. It's not just southern Lebanon, by the way. These foolish people in central and northern Lebanon who are with the Israelis and who support the empire, the U.S., or who are on the payroll of Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the others, they don't realize that they will be refugees too if they survive the next wars, when they want their next phase of if they can ever get there, and they try to achieve their next phase of expansionism.
Right.
And it's interesting that in Syria, the Syrian government, they don't do anything to take back any of that huge amount of territory that the Israelis have taken since the fall of the former president Assad. Right now would be the opportune moment for them to start fighting, because Hezbollah is fighting. So a lot of Israeli forces are elsewhere. That would apply a lot of pressure, and then maybe they could get concessions from the regime. But they won't do that. They won't touch the Israelis because they're proxies. From the very beginning, since the beginning of the Dirty War, they were proxies of the United States. These Wahhabi and Salafi and Takfiri groups, they were on the payroll of regimes bound to the U.S. empire. So they're not going to do anything about their territory. The president and prime minister of Lebanon don't want to do anything about the occupation, because they're all a part of this broader empire. So it is for Hezbollah and its supporters to resist, and Iran has an obligation to do what it can to help them.
Yeah, and let's just, I thought we could show this clip. This is AO4, Brad, because we're talking about the destruction, and sometimes it's, effective to see what it looks like. So this is Sarah, whose Twitter handle, I retweet her all the time, is Sahura XO. She tweeted out, this is southern Lebanon right now. Israel's dropping bombs on civilian homes in Makara Tire. American-made, American-supplied bombs. So let's just take a look. So just an image of this, death and destruction that is happening all the time with the express support, logistical support, diplomatic support, moral support, financial support, military support of the United States. And it's just absolutely shameful. And, it is so funny because, the Iranian government is so vilified, as we've talked before. And it's not just the government, it's all the people. And what's interesting is I have people on this show, like the range of people I have on this issue when it comes to Iran, who are Iranian or Iranian American or Iranian Canadian. It's like the range is that they are critical maybe of the Iranian government, but very much against regime change, very much against the United States and Israel and their actions. But it's like increasingly, kind of uniting everyone, I think, in being more supportive of the Iranian government, because their moral superiority is so clear. All these enemies, official enemies of the United States and Israel, they just really hand us our rear end when it comes to looking at any appearance of morality. And I keep saying this, we really live in the twilight zone, and we have a total inversion, whether it's the rapists who are portrayed as not having raped anyone by Western media, while the people who did not rape anyone are portrayed as the rapists. You have the government that, actually is protecting people portrayed as the villain, and the governments that are massacring people are portrayed as the heroes and the humanitarians. But really, it is, I think, becoming so clear that, regardless of one's thoughts on a particular government, like on a more micro level, that on a macro level, this is a battle of good versus evil. I'm sorry, I know people are going to say I'm being simplistic or Manichaean, but when we're talking about this on a worldwide level, which we are, I don't know how else we can see it.
Well, that's why, and I've said this so many times recently, that some friends are making fun of me. But that's why I say people should read more about Iran. When I introduced that book, Going to Tehran, on your show and on other shows, I really think people should start reading, because if they start reading books like this, and Alistair Crook's book Resistance, they would begin to see how this whole narrative against Iran they created this in order to empower the empire, in order to help the Israeli regime. And this narrative has been it's been around for 47 years. And so many Americans, if you say that, well, the Iranians they're trying to protect people from being slaughtered, they'll say, what are you talking about? These Iranians, they're horrible, they're killers, they want to drop nuclear bombs on, I don't know, New York, or just what Trump keeps saying. And what Trump says is not, it sounds crazy to us, but it does play on a narrative that has been presented to the American people, sometimes in a crude way by like Fox News, sometimes in a much more subtle way by CNN or the New York Times, but it is the same narrative. So people are brought up to believe that Iran is evil. And so if anyone says anything outside of those boundaries, then they're either apologists, or they're fools, or they're naive, or they're living on another planet, but that is the reality. I mean, people and many young Iranians. Yes, and many young Iranians, by the way, going back to the point that you make, many young Iranians in the West and some of them don't even speak Persian. They contact me, although I can't check my email anymore. I'm just so overloaded. But people do contact me through different means, and they tell me about the sharp divide between them and their parents.
Yeah,
and it's just like what we're seeing in the broader environment too. Like when on the right, you see that older people support they watch Fox News, and then the younger people, they support Palestine, whether they're Jews or Christians or Muslims. The same is true with the Iranian community abroad. The younger people are in shock. Many of them, I don't know the numbers, but from what I'm hearing from some of these young Iranians abroad, who, as I said, they don't even speak a great deal of Persian. They also have that divide now between themselves and some people in the older generation.
Right. Yeah. I know you have to run. You are, as always, so generous with your time. Do we have time for one more question?
Sure.
Okay, great. So wanted to well, two things actually, but they're related. So speaking of the role of the West, Richard Medhurst, who we've had on the show before, had a great tweet, I thought, that kind of crystallized this. If we could just throw that up. Virtually every person Israel has ever killed was murdered with a U.S. or European weapon. What does that say about the West? Uncomfortable question, and the answer even more so. Which I think is something that we have to reckon with. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is not a direct response to that, but it's during apartheid in Southern Africa and in South Africa, the Nelson Mandela was declared a terrorist
Right.
in accordance with U.S. law, and so was the ANC. Now, the ANC today is not extraordinarily popular in South Africa for reasons not related to what was going on back then. But back then, the ANC and other resistance movements were fighting the apartheid regime, and they were the terrorists. And Nelson Mandela, when he was freed from prison, he was still a terrorist according to U.S. law. When he became president, he was still a terrorist. When he retired when his presidency ended and he retired from politics, he was still a terrorist. And it was only years later that the U.S. removed him and the ANC from their terror list. So when you look at the role of the United States and across the world, in past and present, it's never been benign. And this is not something about Trump. Trump, as I said, he's more ruthless and more crude,
Right.
much more crude. But these policies have been. I mean, Obama was the guy who killed people with drones, and he of course gave the green light to the Saudis to carry out their genocidal war, and the Emiratis to carry out their genocidal war in Yemen, which had the support of the entire region except for Iran. Turkey and Qatar too supported them initially until the break between Qatar and Saudi Arabia and the Emirates. He destroyed Libya. Obama helped create a slave market in Libya.
Yeah.
Because of the destruction of civil society and the chaos. And wherever there's chaos, you're going to see, in any country, in the United States, if God forbid civil society collapses, you're going to see the same thing. Thugs and mafia people, they become empowered. That's exactly what they did in Syria. When they waged the war, a lot of these ISIS and Al-Qaeda affiliates, they were previously, they were gangsters. They were mafia people, and then they put on this long beard and they became ISIS or Al-Qaeda or whatever. That's what happens everywhere. So Obama, who was supposed to end racism, his presidency in the United States, he helped bring about the Trump presidency, but he helped. He was the person who is responsible for the slave markets in Libya.
Right, and femicide in Honduras, for instance.
Of course, yes, of course.
Yeah, just another example that goes against the humanitarian image he seeks to cultivate. I just want to ask you one more question. It's kind of a big one, so but you're very eloquent and concise. And you and I have talked about this.
I'm not eloquent, and I'm definitely not concise. But anyways,
well, for both, you're definitely eloquent. I mean, but you and I have discussed this offline, and then we did talk about it online too. But it's been a couple months, and so someone write username, and this is a question I struggle with also as an agnostic, I would say. So can you please ask Dr. Marandi, as a theist, how he copes with the problem of evil in the world? How does he not blame God for what he willed in this world?
Well, God gives us the ability to choose, and we and a part of that many of our options in life are evil, and it doesn't have to necessarily be at this at the broader level. It can be towards our family, towards our neighbors, towards our colleagues, towards people we don't know on the streets. We have that capacity, and I think that is that choice is itself important to have. But also, Katie, if I personally believe that in our, first of all, there's a in Shia Islam, one of our imams, I don't know if it's the prophet or one of the imams, who says that on Judgment Day, God will be so forgiving that even Satan, and Satan is not necessarily one person, but Satan's but Satan.
Trump. Just kidding.
No, I mean Satan, like in.
I know. Just kidding, yeah.
Satan. Yeah. Even Satan, which is not one entity, there are many. they too will have hope in being forgiven. Not that they will be forgiven, but the point is that that is the extent of God's forgiveness. And so that is his nature, that is who he is. And beyond that, God has the ability to take away all the pain, and human existence in the afterlife is eternal. So the pains that we see today or tolerate today are, it's our existence on this planet is very brief, and God has the ability to not just wipe away the tears, but to make all the pain and the pain that accompanies the memories to go away. That is in his power. We are, according to our religious beliefs, there is the human soul does not have gender, nor is it of any race. So I don't know what Sunni scholars believe, but Shia scholars believe that, based on tradition, that the human being has a soul, and there is no gender in that soul. There's no race in that soul. We're all human beings, and whatever happens to us, he can, whatever hardship we experience in this period on this planet, is compensated for infinitely. And those who deserve punishment, they, many will be forgiven, but they are not everyone, but many of those who are forgiven. I don't want to go into religion because I'm just an ordinary person. But God will compensate those people who forgive their oppressors on this planet by giving them even greater uh, um, greater good in the afterlife. So I don't want to say he bribes, that's not the right word, but he
Right.
encourages people to be forgiving even in the afterlife for what happened on this. But there will be people who will not be forgiven. And when you look at the Netanyahus and the Trumps and the Saddam Husseins and all the, these people who did so much for empire, Saddam Hussein, he waged war against Iran at the behest of the United States.
Right.
So he's someone who he used chemical weapons against us. There are some people like him or Netanyahu or Trump or the Obamas that I don't think that they can ever be forgiven. But I think all of the victims, in his infinite in his infinite goodness, God will deal with that pain and suffering, and it will go away, and it will. And he is just. We believe that God is just, but the value of life for us, I think, is in the choice, in being able to make certain choices. I cannot think about not living on this planet without supporting resistance. And for me, and I'm sure for you, it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. You, instead of thinking about other things, you always have to think about people being killed in Lebanon and Gaza and elsewhere, and how to deal with it and how to make a cause that's not directly linked to yourself. It becomes your cause. But at the same time, I would rather do this than do anything else. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, yeah, thank you. I mean, it's very heavy. I mean, no, it's good. I find it really fascinating. And again, we've talked about this before, but it's just funny because you have this very racist trope about Islam turning people into killers, right? And like, oh, they don't value life. They send their kids off to die, and that's why you have the suicide bombings and that, the other. And what's interesting is that there is a theological connection between obviously like behavior, but there's a really rich like culture and history of, and we're seeing it now, of religion or theology inspiring people not to like engage in violence to kill, but being willing to sacrifice themselves to protect others.
Well, that's what Hezbollah has done.
Right.
And the resistance, they fought in order to help the people of Gaza.
Yeah.
So yes, they're sacrificing the lives of themselves, and they knew their families would be targeted, but they felt that in order, because the life of Palestinians is of a value, just as much as the lives of their own people are of value, so they were prepared to make a sacrifice for other people.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And, or, I've had Christian Lebanese people who say that they feel protected by Hezbollah. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, Dr. Marandi, thank you so much. I'm glad to see you are safe. And I hope, of course, to speak to you soon.
Thank
We
you very
always
much for
love
having me,
having you
Katie.
on.
It's always a great pleasure.
Oh, wait, I just want to bring someone on because I know I believe she is a fan of yours. And so I want to have you and Nerdeen Kiswani meet our next guest. Hi, Nerdeen. Welcome.
Hi. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum
Sayyid
assalam.
Mohammad Marandi is such a big fan, me and my husband, of your work. And
You're very kind.
thank you
You're
so
very
much for
kind. Thank you.
everything you do. And, it's a difficult time right now, 100%. But I only hope that we can try as much as we can here to lift the boot of U.S. imperialism off of our respective nations, Palestine and Iran. And you are profound and eloquent, as Katie said. And I think the last answer, it was really deep for me to just even be sitting here and listening to that. As a Muslim myself, Sunni Muslim, pretty much, I believe the same thing, everything you said. Some people, they can't be forgiven even by God, because it's up to the people they hurt, the people that they oppress, to forgive them. And if they don't, they aren't forgiven. And so, we have parades for these evil people here in New York, which is what I'm here to discuss.
And both of you, I just want to say, are very brave. And I don't know, Dr. Marandi, so Nerdeen is an amazing organizer who's been harassed by Betar and even had an attempted terrorist attack on her life that was stopped by.
In today's world, we have lots of young heroes, and they're growing by the number. And both of you and your families, and friends, we're all growing in number, and that's what makes me more optimistic about the future.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, and have a great night for you.
You too. Thank you both. Bye for now. I'll make sure to watch both of you.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. And thanks for that, Katie. Thanks
of course. Yeah, I love connecting people. Next time we'll have to have you guys on together. But Nerdeen, thank you for taking the time. You are busy. Obviously, you have I'm not divulging any information.
No.
You have an infant. And I want to have you on to talk about, actually, we haven't had you on since you were targeted, and we can get to that because it's actually related, because we're talking about terrorists. But you were very vocal about the fact that this year, war criminal and far-right extremist Bezalel Smotrich, as well as others such as like Amichai Eliyahu, who's the heritage minister, that all of these terrorists were invited to join the annual Israel Day parade. And what are your thoughts on this? And I have some videos that we're going to show, and we'll get to meet the individuals. We can do like a who's who of all the terrorists who marched in it. But before we get into the specific, what are your thoughts on this more generally?
Yeah, I'm sure we both agree that it isn't just them. They're indicative representative of the entire Israeli government, which is chock full of war criminals. Anyone associated with Israel in any representative capacity, is essentially fulfilling that role. So, regardless of, all of the politicians who, and I'm sure we're going to get to this, came out and said, oh, we didn't know Smotrich was going to be there, an official representative of the Israeli government that we were there to celebrate.
Right.
We didn't know he was going to be there. It makes no difference, because the whole theme of the parade itself, is there to continue to build support for genocidal baby killing, to set the standard, the stage that, even as opinions on Israel, on Zionism continue to decline in the U.S., the American politicians, left, right, center, wherever they are still going to claim their stake, in this Zionist American apple pie. And that's, essentially what this was. To tell you all that we're still on the side of Zionism. And this is something that's been going on for, as long as I can remember, for as long as we've both been alive. Israel Day has been about, celebrating Zionism. We have many parades here in New York City. The largest parades in America happen in New York City. I think the West Indian Day Parade is the largest parade that happens in America. So in terms of size, in terms of numbers, the Zionist Israel Day Parade is small potatoes. But in terms of who attends and the political statement that they're making by attending, is ultimately the goal of this parade. So generally, that's what I think about that in terms of the fact that Mamdani didn't attend this year. That was a small step towards, rejecting this genocide, rejecting Zionism. I think it would have been, very strange if he did attend compared to everything he said. I don't think he would even be, welcome.
Right.
But at the same time, I don't think it was enough. He should have been more vocally against it when reporters asked him, if he was going to send in a representative from his administration, him smiling along with Jessica Tisch, who stepped forward and said that she would be attending. Yeah, exactly. The police commissioner, the NYPD police commissioner. It was kind of like a tacit, acceptance, normalization of everything. And I find that, particularly disgusting, given that Jessica Tisch's family owns the Lowe's Regency Hotel where Netanyahu stays every time he comes to New York City, even though Mamdani said that he would literally arrest Netanyahu for the ICC warrant he has. And Smotrich also has an upcoming, according to him, upcoming ICC warrant that, he might be faced with soon. But I don't think that he did enough to really reflect the seriousness of this by just, smiling along with Jessica Tisch when it came to her saying that she's going to be representing his administration by attending this parade and providing one of the most secure, largest security police details of any parade, even of this parade in the history of New York City.
Right. We actually have video of Zoran Mamdani being asked about his administration attending the Israel Day Parade. So let's take a look at this. B08, Brad.
Two-part question. Thank you. While you won't be attending, given your personal views, is the administration sending a representative on behalf of the administration to the parade? And on the security measures, okay, that's an answer. And second,
yeah, so that was Jessica Tisch. For people who are maybe just listening, raises her hand,
and they both smile and laugh along with the crowd. So I mean, I find that revolting. I mean, how are you going to call it a genocide? How are you going to recognize that Israel is an apartheid state and then, slowly normalize it like that? I think it's, more dangerous because he doesn't get the flack for attending the parade the way that an Eric Adams or Bill de Blasio has, which I've protested them attending this in the past. But at the same time, he's able to provide cover, provide support for it. By being so casual about a representative of his administration that's carrying out all of the details to make this parade possible without disruption, without interruption, officially being represented in the parade itself. So yeah.
Well, it's interesting. So I mean, I think you pointed out very correctly, this isn't about the individual Israeli officials who attend, but it has become a lightning rod kind of this issue. And I think it's what's significant, I think, about their attending, because it's not like it would be okay to have this or attend this rally without them, but it shows how brazen it is that they don't even pretend to not have these high ranking officials. They can't even plausibly say, they try to do this, which is already ridiculous, but it's like another level of ridiculous, right? Like they're trying to be like, oh, this is about Israel, not the current government, which is a ridiculous thing to say, because that suggests that Israel is fine when it's not this government, right? Like it's not an apartheid genocidal state. But then they're trying to claim that it's not about the government, and then you do have these officials. So let's take a look at some of the people who participated. So let's take a look at this video of the Israel Day parade, and then we can like pause and show who various people are. That would be which one is that? That is the where we see the marching, Brad. Which one is that? Sorry. 1 second. B01. B1, Brad, thanks. Okay, so they're on the right there, the guy in the second from the left who has an actual sash. He's next to the guy in the red or the maroon tie. That is the Minister of Heritage. That would be Amichai Eliyahu. Okay, we're gonna keep watching. Let's see who else we got there. Okay, that's of course Smotrich, the finance minister, and he's being asked here. The finance minister, who, as you mentioned, Nerdeen, is probably there's maybe an ICC warrant for him. He's said lots of genocidal things. We'll go through some of the things he said. He's recently really embraced ethnic cleansing, so let's go for him. What do you think of this year's march? To me, this event reminds me of the Jerusalem Flag March, a big celebration. Now right here, you have Kathy Hochul, governor of New York. Right behind her is Daniel Goldman, who's a congressman. And then you have also Tisch James, the NY AG, Attorney General. And Danny Dayan right there. If you could just see, let's see, right there on the right, the last, the guy whose face is kind of cut off. Right there. Okay.
Hey,
well,
Katie,
yeah.
I know it's a little off topic, but I really don't appreciate these signs in the background with Hillary Clinton's campaign slogan.
Oh, you're right. Stronger together. That is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there was another one that says Governor Kathy Hochul is proud to march in the Israel Day on 5th parade.
Yeah.
Parade.
Yep. Yeah. And
that's Julie Menon too, the city council speaker.
Right
next to Kathy.
Yeah, with the curls.
Yeah, and Letitia James. Them.
Oh yeah, did I not mention her?
I think you did actually. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
You know what? The Tisch thing confuses me.
Oh, right. I said Tisch. Yeah, Letitia James. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, and Katie, I'm sorry to interject again, but then underneath the Stronger Together, we have the Star of David and then an image of the state of New York.
Yeah, great, awesome.
But also, and I don't know if you touched on this, but when you were talking about how they were saying this parade is about Israel, it's not about the government of Israel. I thought it was interesting then that in that context, they were willing to separate the two. But then in other instances, they want to conflate the two, that, Israel and the state are one and the same, and if you criticize the government, then you are being anti-Semitic.
Oh well, they try to conflate. That's two levels of conflation. It's like the government, the people of Israel, and then all Jewish people. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but then here they seem to be perfectly fine with having some nuance with separation.
Right. Yeah. Ex post facto. Yeah. And that's Danny Dayan, who we'll get to shortly, all the way on the right with the glasses on.
I'm Yisroel Chai. The people Israel live.
All right. Okay. So I just thought it would be worth like going over some of these characters so people have a sense of the people who were marching with them. Let's see, what do we got here? We have
I'm just gonna quickly say Danny Dayan is like the former leader of the settler movement in the West Bank, and he's been marching in this parade for years and years and years, and I've never seen any of these condemnations come out about him. So it's like only if there's an ICC warrant in the works, these politicians want to look back and speak out about it. But I mean, yeah, every single figure there was absolutely disgusting.
We have some footage. So let's take a look at who you just mentioned. Danny Danon. I think I I called him something else. Danny Danon. He recently was on Piers Morgan responding to the video posted by Ben Gvir himself of Ben Gvir abusing Kat Graham, an Irish activist kidnapped by Israel, along with other flotilla members, who, by the way, we interviewed her on Useful Idiots. Let's take a look at what he had to say about the abuse of this prisoner, and that would be B3.
But let me just play you the video that I'm talking about that Ben Gvir posted.
Free Palestine! שקט. טובה. עבודה טובה. ברוכים הבאים לישראל, אנחנו בעלי הבית. ככה צריך.
Now, when you see what happened to that woman at the start of that video, what do you feel about that?
Well, I haven't seen any sexual abuse in that video.
I didn't say sexual abuse. I was very specific.
Well, we are talking about sexual abuse.
She was being physically abused, right? I mean, do you accept that,
you haven't shown what happened before. And from my experience...
She shouted, free Palestine, and for that she got physically abused.
What she did before. So many times when you show part of the videos, and she was detained. She was illegally trying to break into Gaza. She was detained.
So you don't condemn the way she was treated.
So just, I mean, an example of how, you know, he on television, again, not even pretending. It's interesting because you had actually Netanyahu condemning Ben Gvir's behavior, even though we know it's part and parcel of the Israeli government. But it was so kind of shocking to see this abuse of, perhaps it was because she was a white European woman, that the government, that Netanyahu felt the pressure to condemn it, but Danon doesn't. And this is one of the people marching. Let's take a look also. What do we have to learn about some of our other participants? And by the way, he is currently the Israeli ambassador to the United Nations. We also have Amichai Eliyahu, and he's the heritage minister. And in November 2023, he said there's no such thing as uninvolved civilians in Gaza. He also said we wouldn't hand the Nazis humanitarian aid, obviously referring to why there should not be humanitarian aid given to the people of Gaza. Smotrich,
well, Eliyahu also said, just to add on to that, you know, that Israel was racing to wipe out the region, not just Gaza, and that the government is racing ahead for Gaza to be wiped out. Thank God we're wiping out this evil. All of Gaza will be Jewish. So, you know, just clearly genocidal.
Yeah. And then let's also, and of course, we got Smotrich, who said, no water, no electricity, let them die of hunger or surrender. Come live in the West Bank. I hope this incentive will help us bring 1 million settlers and kill the idea of a Palestinian state. And so let's take a look at how what Kathy Hochul said, given that she was walking, as we saw, just a couple people away from Danon. Here's what she had to say about Smotrich's participation. Okay. Bezalel Smotrich, Bezalel Smotrich is a far-right extremist whose hateful and divisive rhetoric is fundamentally at odds with the values we hold dear in New York. Yesterday's parade was a celebration of Jewish pride, community, and unity. I strongly condemn his participation. And then you even had people saying that he crashed the parade. He wasn't officially invited. So what are your thoughts on this? You actually responded to Hochul yourself.
Yeah, I mean, she was right there marching with him.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
She could have called this out on the spot, chose not to. But at the end of the day, I mean, even if she did call this out prior to the fact, I mean, he's part of the Israeli government. So you condemn him being there. You don't condemn him being part of the Israeli government. You don't condemn the Israeli government. I saw a tweet about this. It's like, oh, I went to the Klan rally and I was surprised that there were Klan members there.
Exactly.
I forgot who said it exactly, but I mean, that's pretty much all there is to say about this. I mean, it's just plausible deniability. They don't care about the outcomes of their actions. They don't care about the fact that they're supporting a genocide. not just in Gaza, but that's expanding to Lebanon and Iran and, all over the region. They just don't want to be associated with the bad words that Smotrich says.
Right.
That makes them look bad.
Right.
But they still ultimately support baby killing parade, and that's exactly why they attended this to begin with.
Yep. Here's what you wrote. You marched in the parade with him. You making the statement now is speaking out of both sides of your mouths. Why didn't you refuse to participate in the parade and condemn him on the spot when you were actually side by side with him? Very good question. And I do think, though, that it's really important because some people, the way that people are focusing just on Smotrich or Danon, for instance, reminds me a bit of when people say it's just Netanyahu, as if it's like not a systemic issue. It's not, because it's not just this genocide isn't just a national project or a government project. It's or a state project, I should say. It is a national project, not just a state or government project.
Exactly. And it's been going on for years. I mean, in 2018, when I protested the Israel Day Parade, which was one of the scariest days of my life, and why, I don't feel safe protesting it now with even, increased security and increased brazenness from Zionists and attacking. I mean, we had photos of all of the Palestinians that were killed in the 2018 Great Return March. And that's how we attended the Israel Day Parade. They were literally celebrating just shortly after, gunning, mowing people down who were protesting peacefully, not even armed, gunning down people like Razan al-Najjar, the 18-year-old nurse, or, that baby girl, Layla al-Ghandour. So, I mean, this was years prior to October 7th. And, they were just looking at us, laughing at us, throwing things at us, physically attacking us. NYPD did nothing about it then. Just this year on Nakba Day, a Zionist was throwing eggs at us from, his balcony in the middle of Manhattan. And the NYPD literally went and just protected the doors, to enter into the building itself. So, I mean, I can only imagine anybody who tried to attend or disrupt the Zionist Day Parade this year, what would have happened to them. But the point is, this has been going on for a long time. They've been killing people, regardless of, who's in whatever politicians are in power here, or whatever politicians are in power there. The problem isn't just Smotrich or the Netanyahu government, as you said. The problem is Israel's itself. As a colonial genocidal entity, that's the only way that it can maintain its existence, by continuing, to carry this out. Otherwise, it's, no longer a Jewish state. The Palestinian majority would take over. And if, Palestinians do have equal rights, ultimately with reparations, with repatriation and return of Palestinians, we would decolonize our land. And, it's not about just having equal rights with oppressors who, now live in our stolen homes and who now live and profit off of our stolen olive groves. We would have to decolonize that and give it back to the rightful owners who are currently languishing in refugee camps across the Arab world, and in Zionist dungeons and in exile, Palestinians, like myself. So, they wouldn't be able to exist if they weren't killing and oppressing and maintaining an apartheid state. So ultimately, no matter who's in power, no matter how nice they are, or what words, nice words they use compared to the most brazen of those in the Israeli government, ultimately it's built off of genocide, dispossession, oppression of Palestinian people.
Right. And you also, by the way, said you tweeted out that you were disappointed that people weren't organizing against this parade and doing organizing against this parade. And you said that you would, but you are have an infant, and also you were targeted recently and you didn't feel safe. So you wrote, what's hard to understand is how so many organizations, you tweet, a few years ago, I helped organize protests against the Israel Day Parade and feared for my life. Today, with an infant and after being the target of a recent assassination plot, I can't take that risk. What's hard to understand is how so many organizations with far more resources, security, and capacity were nowhere to be found. So can you tell us more about these protests and also why you think there weren't protests this year?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, when I would protest them, these Zionists would literally attack us physically. They would throw things at us, and the NYPD does nothing. So, I mean, that pattern has only gotten worse. I mean, now they come to our protests and attack us there, let alone, Palestinians going to a gathering of the most rabid genocidal Zionists in New York City. But it seems like it always falls on grassroots Palestinian organizations, whether it's, outside of the Nova Festival that we protested, whether it's the, land sales that other grassroots Palestinian organizations protest. It's always on us, to confront, the most rabid aspects of the Zionist genocidal movement. But where are the orgs like, JVP and DSA, right? Some of them with $1 million budgets. DSA now having people in office, that actually have way more institutional power, security, members, money, and not being the direct victims of the genocide and of Palestinian oppression themselves. Where are they, disrupting these kinds of things? It's infuriating to see these Zionists be able to come to our city and barely have any pushback. When Ben Gvir came to New York City, here in Brooklyn, again, it was individuals, Palestinians, a lot of them. Yes, there were also rank and file members of JVP, rank and file members of DSA, but not being represented or supported by the larger organization itself, just coming to attend on their own. So, I'm not blasting every single person associated with those organizations, but statements from them are not enough. They need to come out and do something, at least let it be known that, Zionist genocidal war criminals are not welcome in our city. And when we say that, it's not just rhetoric, we mean it. We are going to put ourselves and our bodies out there on the line, to make that clear. Because I really think they got off scot-free this year, and we don't want to go back to business as usual. Zionist genocidal, rhetoric and politicians are just normalized in our city. We don't want to do that. So I really think these organizations need to take a closer look at, what they aim to do and do more direct action. When Ben Gvir was here, I was like 8 or 9 months pregnant, and I wouldn't get out of the car, but I was at the protest, close to it. I was getting updates from people on the ground. I was posting about it, talking about it. And no other major organization was doing that at all. So when we say we're against Zionism, we're against these people in our city, do we mean it? And that's the question I pose to these organizations.
Right. I also want to show Sana Saeed. Sana Saeed tweeted out a kind of hilarious image of B7, Muslims for Israel, the Muslims for Israel contingent. Let's take a look at this.
It's like 20 people.
Yeah, it's not a lot. There's video of this, Brad, but we don't have to show it.
I think I saw one of them wearing a kippah too. So
oh my gosh. Okay.
I think these are like, the ex-Muslims or like the
right.
The half Muslim.
Yeah. Well, I actually wanted to bring on our next guest because I thought you guys could have a really interesting conversation together. Especially because when you were targeted, and I'll ask you about that to the extent that you're comfortable. I know you talked about in Democracy Now!, but you were targeted by someone who had ties to the JDL, the Jewish Defense League. And so Maureen, from a great journalist at the American Prospect, Moe, aka Moe Tkacik, wanted to bring her onto the show because she's done some reporting on the JDL and Meir Kahane. So welcome back to the show, Moe. Hi.
Thanks for having me. Sorry, I'm like I just got home from picking up my kids at school, and everything in the computer. They sort of share my computer, so they put things in fun places.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I guess you have to child lock it or something. But Nerdeen, tell us about this threat that you faced, and then Moe, tell us about these interesting things that you know about the JDL and Meir Kahane, who is of course the godfather of this.
Yeah, I'll try to summarize it as quickly as possible. Basically, I get a call or repeated calls from private number around like 9 p.m. one day, don't answer it because that's weird. Also, Zionists sometimes like try to reach out to me on different platforms and stuff like that. So I mean, that's my automatic assumption. But then my sister, father, brother, even uncles, like everyone starts getting these calls. Like, what the hell? So my brother finally picks up, and they say, at the same time, also like 2 FBI agents appear outside of our house, and they tell my brother, there was a threat on your sister's life. I can't tell you what it is, but we just have the duty to inform. So, she can reach out if she wants to know like what's going on. So I call them back with my lawyer online, and they basically say, we can't tell you like who it is, what they were doing, what was going to happen, but basically your life was in danger and it's no longer in danger, and we just have a duty to inform, and you'll probably hear about it in the news tomorrow. It's going to be a big story. And I'm like, okay, so you can't just tell me now. Yeah, basically. And then I find out in the news the next day, the New York Times somehow, who also, I spoke to them through my lawyer, that this person was part of the offshoot of the JDL called the JDL 613 Brotherhood. And he had created like between 8 to 12 Molotov cocktails that he was planning on throwing inside of my house, and in the cars outside of the house. And that he actually assembled these Molotov cocktails with the undercover NYPD undercover agent from the NYPD who was part of the Joint Terrorism Task Force that works with the FBI, and that he was going to cross state lines from New Jersey to New York to carry out this attack. But, after he assembled the cocktails, they arrested him, and he had actually like previously cased the house. So it was the correct house. It wasn't random. Like he had everything planned out. But, just to quickly, close off on this note, I had previously warned about this specific offshoot of the JDL and the JDL at large, saying that they've been threatening me. And, I said it on your show pretty much. I think you covered it as well, that these threats I take seriously, and that these same people, they firebombed, they killed a Palestinian activist in the US before, and I feel like that's going to happen to me. And then pretty much everything I said, except for the success of it, did happen. And I think if I wasn't warning about it, talking about it as constantly as I was, who knows how it could have ended up. And it really would have made everyone involved who's supposed to be protecting us look completely incompetent because of my repeatedly warning about this and them, doing nothing about it.
Right. So really important that you did do that, right?
Yeah, because everyone's like, oh, you should be grateful that like Jessica Tisch didn't allow a terrorist attack on the streets of New York City to happen. Like, you should say thank you that you're not dead and there weren't Molotov cocktails like and terrorist attacks carried out in New York. Like, okay.
Wow. Yeah, I guess that's
so how lucky we are to have Jessica Tisch. One thing that I didn't realize until I started just looking into this Israel Day parade, I didn't realize she had zero law enforcement experience. Like, she was appointed by Eric Adams in November, December 2024. Is my audio okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. And she had never worked in law enforcement ever. She'd never had a job. She'd been in transportation. She'd gotten her JD. She got her MBA. She's very credentialed. But yeah, like there was this sense that she was, this invaluable law enforcement guru. And no, she has a billionaire Zionist mafia surname, and that is that's her. That is what makes her so invaluable.
Well, she was never on the beat, but just a quick thing, because I think she shifted jobs back and forth. But in 2008. She was part of the department's intelligence division, and she was one of the architects of the NYPD domain awareness system, which aggregated surveillance footage and stuff like that, license plate readers, social media data, biometric information. Basically, one of the people who helped build, the whole surveillance against Arabs and Muslims and the NYPD. That Mamdani spoke out again, so. It's just funny that this is where we are.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
the trajectory is she was in 2008. She began her career with the Counterterrorism Bureau at the New York City Police Department, facilitated by Raymond Kelly. Then she was in 2014 appointed Deputy Commissioner for Information Technology at the City Police Department. And then she was in the Department of Information Technology and Telecommunication in 2019, appointed by de Blasio. And then she became very well known when she was appointed by Eric Adams, Commissioner of the New York City Department of Sanitation, because she did a lot with rats, apparently.
She did.
Containing rats, yeah.
Do we have to give her that?
Yeah, rat.
I haven't been here. I haven't been in New York too much, so
yeah.
It's still pretty ratty.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And Nerdeen, I want to make sure that I know you have some child duties.
No, we're good.
Okay, you're good. Okay, yeah. So and Mo, tell us about tell us, now that we have this kind of background, what do you think is important for people to know about the JDL, about Kahane, the connections there? Because you have this amazing piece that you did for the American Prospect.
Right, and it was just because the genesis of it is that Handala, the Iranian hacker group, had posted a bunch of files from this woman who's kind of a fascinating case named Melissa Kronfeld. And she's a rich chick who worked for the New York Post for a while, and then she got her PhD, and she was teaching at Rutgers for a while, and then she just decided to go become the most rabid West Bank settler. We need to blow up the Al-Aqsa Mosque type of wing nut that you can imagine. And I was really trying to, and Handala was claiming that they had all of her personal files, which included her last will and testament, which was kind of fascinating. She's very, very wealthy. And they claimed that she was at a CIA front, essentially. And but I couldn't find any evidence of that. But I start going into her stuff, and I find this real massive effort to sort of like woke wash Kahanism, the really hard right, the crazy genocidal ideology that we very openly and aggressively genocidal ideology that we associate with Ben Gvir and Smotrich, and this new, the Jewish supremacist exterminationist ideology. And you see in her files this really incredible, like one of the projects that she's working on is called Humans of Judea. And it's this like effort to do like a Humans of New York, but with, hilltop youth. So it was really interesting. And I find this little mini doc on Meir Kahane, the founder of the Jewish Defense League. Now, Kahane was a Brooklyn rabbi's son. His family was friends with, I think they were friends with the Bronfmans. They were friends with a lot of sort of mafia types, and they were friends with Zev Jabotinsky, the famous kind of revisionist Zionist who really, really, really hated the communists so much that Ben-Gurion called him Vladimir Hitler. He is one who founded Betar. He collaborated with Mussolini, and he probably collaborated with Hitler. Let's just be honest. Or he definitely collaborated with the Nazis. He died in 1939 or 1940, so he didn't get to sort of see how that turned out. But he founded Irgun, or he either founded or inspired the founding of Irgun, the really most militant, most genocidal of the militias that carried out the Nakba. Anyway, so this guy, Meir Kahane, who was really Martin was his name that he was born with, and he he was very pretty popular. He was he had like a a charismatic demeanor, but he really wasn't good at getting a job. He couldn't support himself. He was working a paper route, and then he somehow stumbles into with his friend from Batar camp, who's got a PhD, and he's kind of working his way into the military industrial complex. They discover that there's this sort of rich demand. There's this robust demand for right-wing front organizations, CIA-funded right-wing front organizations, anti-communist infiltration. They start this sort of like intelligence partnership, and they write a book about how the Jews need to support Vietnam, why it's in their interest. They start a lot of front organizations at college campuses for pro-Vietnam War students. They supposedly infiltrate the John Birch Society and find out all about their anti-Semitism, and that is supposedly J. Edgar Hoover project. But then they found in 1968 the Jewish Defense League, and this is it kind of starts out as this like hardcore sort of racist militiamen. They are, I guess there have been some old Jewish ladies mugged in Brooklyn. This is also coming around the same time as the teacher strike, which caused a lot of Jewish black tension in Brooklyn. There was the outgrowth of so they're channeling all of this sort of Archie Bunker, angry white man rage, but specifically among Jews, and talking about it and putting it in these very apocalyptic, like if we don't take care of ourselves, there's going to be a Holocaust thing. They make a formal alliance with the Colombo crime family, but it turns out that later on that the Mossad has actually been sort of running their operations and giving them their assignments, but for the most part, because when they started doing actual terror attacks, almost all of them were targeted at Soviet outposts in New York. So Soviet musicians would come to play, and they would, they at one point they got, and he had such a following with like troubled teens, something you, familiar there. He got this one high school girl to give blood somehow. Like I don't know. She donated to herself a quart of her own blood, and then she took it and she poured it over the head of a mid-level Soviet diplomat. That was one of their attacks. But they did more explosive stuff. They killed a few people eventually, and so they're starting a lot of trouble. And in 1971, the New York Times reporter says, I got to profile this guy. He's causing all this trouble. I see a lot of people in sort of, outer borough Brooklyn really love this guy, but he's racist and he's dangerous. And they start looking into one of his charities because they sense that there's something not right about it, because it's just a little bit too vague. It's supposed to be raising money for orphans in Israel, and they give little pictures of the young orphan child to donors, and they raise a bunch of money, but it's really unclear how they're doing this. Do they have even any relationships with orphans in Israel? No, they don't. All the money turns out to be, going to his dry cleaning and all of his. So during the week, because they all go back home for Sabbath, but during the week, he and his partner, who ended up working for the Moonies and was clearly a lifelong CIA asset. He and his partner lived in this kind of bachelor pad on the Upper East Side, and they had a lot of expenses that they had to hide from their wives because they were sleeping around and cruising the bars, and so that's what they were using this charity for. And it turned out it was called the Estelle Evans Foundation, and they're like, who is this? What is this name? and it matched the name. As it turned out, it was named for the sort of stage name of the love of Meir Kahane's life, who was this 18 or 19-year-old sort of wannabe model that he'd met at a bar. And they just had the best sex of his life. He was absolutely in love with her. He got her pregnant. And then he realized they were supposed to get married because she was pregnant, and you know, they were going to have this absolutely idyllic life together. And he finally writes her a letter. And this is in 1966. He writes her a letter breaking it off, saying, sorry, I'm actually married. And by the way, my name is not Michael King. I'm a rabbi. And she is so distraught that she, you know, her roommate goes out rushing after her. At 4:30 in the morning, she jumps off the Queensboro Bridge. And they find this letter in her her purse. And he is just completely beside himself. He goes to her funeral, and he like sort of, you know, prostrates himself on the ground. And when the New York Times pieces together this story, they find the girl's parents, they find the girl's roommate, they talk to the partner who's teaching at a military base. They finally decide to, you know, corner him. He's taping a radio show, and they say, okay, you got to tell us about, you know, Estelle Evans. And Kahane says, I loved her. I loved her. She was my true love. I've never known such passion. And, you know, I really wish she was gonna convert. You know, my wife, like my sex life with the wife was just kind of bad. You know, she's just too orthodox. You know, that basically opens up this whole, this is all on the record. And they're like, holy fuck. So these two reporters, you know, called their editor and say, hey, we've got this incredible story. We've got the perfect lead. They write the lead. It's got this rabbi, you know, throwing roses on the gravesite of his lover. And Gelb and A.M. Rosenthal, their Metro editor and the managing editor of the newspaper at the time, A.M. Rosenthal, a very iconic newspaper editor, publisher, and a very hardcore Zionist. He's like, nah, we can't do it, guys. We can't. This is going to spread too much Zionism if we publish this whole story, which we've gotten on the record. Now, I'm reading this around the same time, you know, basically right before these little stories about Graham Plattner start coming out, and I'm just like, this is so insane that they're, you know, cutting the story, because this man by this time is a avowed terrorist. I don't know if he'd been put on the terrorist organization, but he's extremely racist. He has a formal alliance with the Colombo crime family. They are extremely ethno-supremacist, and they are just at the start of this long string of terror attacks that they are, you know, pulling off throughout New York. This terrorizing. President Nixon is actually very concerned at this point in time that the JDL's attacks are getting in the way of non-proliferation talks with the Soviet Union, because they're just so unhinged. And the idea, I guess, the point of those terror attacks was that they were trying to get the Soviet Union to agree to start, you know, releasing all of their Jews to Israel, because they wanted to ethnic cleanse all of these new, you know, occupied territories that they had refused to give up, despite, you know, administration after administration trying to achieve that. So the JDL was a real problem, but these guys had plenty of intelligence ties. In the 70s, this guy's Kahane's partner goes to work for the Pentagon. He ends up really screwing with the Carter administration's Israel policy. Kahane, you know, he's indicted a few times. He goes to he's indicted right after the story comes out, the story that doesn't have anything, you know, any of the juicy stuff, sort of addresses it elliptically. He moves to Israel. He goes back and forth. He raises money in New York, but he lives in Israel. He has a house in the West Bank. The house that he has in the West Bank is in the settlement that Smotrich grew up in.
Wow.
But actually, Ben Gvir was, I think, an early disciple. I'm pretty sure that they knew each other because Ben Gvir got into radical Kahanist politics pretty early.
And that was an amazing show. Wow. Moe was amazing. Nerdeen was amazing. Dr. Marandi was amazing. Nerdeen had to go for childcare duties, baby duties. If you were watching this live, you are so in luck because you just got to see this amazing show. If you were watching this later on and you want to see the full chat with Moe, where we get into like literally who killed Charlie Kirk or who didn't kill Charlie Kirk, you can find that at patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. So we are giving you over an hour of free footage, of course, of free material. And then we are going to be giving people who are watching this later on, you are so in luck as well, just that you get to watch part of the show. And then you're so in luck that you get to access it if you're Patreon supporters. Again, that's patreon.com/The Katie Halper Show. Don't forget to like, subscribe. Brad, anything else I need to tell people to do? Sorry, I just threw it on you.
No, I think that you covered everything. And yeah, that was
amazing.
I feel like
my head's going to explode. I
feel like it would be incredible to have Moe on talking with oh my gosh, the historian-splaining.
Yeah, Sam. I think I was Sam Biagetti. Yeah,
well,
that would be great.
I say that just because when she was speaking about the JDL and Meir Kahane, the level of thoroughness there.
Right.
I'm like, the only other time I've seen this is from Sam.
Yeah.
That this needs to just be like the definitive explainer.
Yeah, we should do that. Yeah.
It was very, very impressive.
Very impressive. Yeah. And we want to read the super chat. Thank you, Luisa Lopez Hermida, for becoming a YouTube member. I asked your question, username. Thank you, Tena J367, for becoming a YouTube member. And thank you, John Dazinski, for that super sticker. And thank you, anyone and everyone who became Patreon supporters. I bet your bottom dollar that we're going to get a lot of new Patreons when we tease this interview. Let's see, Patreon meet. What day is today?
Today is Friday, June 5th.
Okay, so we streamed. What day was our show? It was on the 2nd, right?
Right.
Okay, let's see what time this was because I read our new people. Okay, so June 2nd at 2:33 p.m. I would have already read that because they would have joined before. I'm just looking to see. Okay, but we got some new. Let's see, what time was this? What time did Lorraine become a member? Lorraine after the show ended. So thank you, Lorraine. We got a new Patreon member, Lorraine. Thank you. We got a new Patreon member, Yvonne. Thank you for that. And that's it. So let's see if we.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
That's
thank
awesome.
you so much. Yeah, I got to push them more at the beginning because I love being able to get them by the end of the show.
Mud of Genius, is this a regular time slot now?
Yes.
It varies. Sometimes it might be, 1. Sometimes it might be 12. But
yeah,
generally
I guess
speaking,
we can tell which one Brad likes more. You like one more, huh?
Well, it comes down to just the availability of the guests.
Oh, yeah.
Like, 7 hours time difference.
Oh, right. Yeah, exactly. But usually is. I think it's better for us to do it at 12 because it's more consistent that way. And it's easier for them because it's earlier and they're ahead of us. All right. Well, thank you guys all so very much. Thanks to our guests. Thanks to Brad. Thanks to Nate. And thanks to you all for watching. See you next week. Bye, everyone.
I did everything right and they indicted me.
And I don't know what the I'm doing. Antifa!